Welcome, welcome. You're here with Luminol on the Wall. I'm Becky.
And I'm Bevy. And hey, sister.
Hello, sister, from the computer screen.
Yeah, it's so different. We're trying to do things remote because, well, when I have the baby, I figure I won't be able to go to your house as often, if at all. So we're trying to make things work.
Yes, we are. So hopefully this...
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it sounds awesome.
I feel like we usually have to pause and keep recording and pause and keep recording when we do podcasts, just because, our speech ain't perfect.
That's true. We get tongue-tied.
But with this one, we kind of have to, right? So we'll see how it goes. Bear with us, everyone.
Yeah, hopefully we can get through this, Beverly.
Yep. It's just the first time always has some little bumps along the way, so just bear with us, everyone.
Yes.
So, Becky.
Yeah?
Tell us about the case for today.
Okay, well, let me just ask you a question.
Okay.
If all of a sudden you got a text from me saying, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to do something I've always wanted to do, and sorry I didn't tell you because I didn't want anyone to, stop me from doing what I wanted, and then you never heard from me again, how would you feel?
Scared. Worried. And I'd also feel blindsided a bit because I feel like I would not thwart your dreams. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
That just wouldn't be like you. I would feel like you could tell me anything, and I don't know. I'd be super concerned, especially if I never heard from you again.
Yeah, right? Even if you text me back and still didn't get a response, be like, well, this is what I've decided to do. Don't bash it, right? You would be concerned, and I would be concerned if I got that from you.
I would hope you would.
Mm-hmm. I would.
Because I would just let you know. I'd give you all the details. You're my best friend. You're my sister. There would be no reason you'd have to keep something from me. So, yeah, that'd be cause for concern for sure.
Well, this is exactly what happens in this case today. And so we'll obviously get into it. You can see the details surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely is cause for concern for this young woman's family.
All right.
So, but before we get into our story, Bev.
Yeah.
You got anything cool to tell me? Sister chat? Nothing? Yes? Saturday morning?
It's Saturday morning. I'm really happy to be home right now, to be honest. This week felt like a year. I have 2 weeks before I, basically, I had 2 weeks left of work. And I'm like, oh, it just can't come soon enough right now. I'm feeling huge.
Huge.
But other than that, honestly, nothing super interesting. What about you?
Wow, we are boring people. I was going to say nothing too interesting either.
Yeah, no. Hey, boring can be good sometimes.
Yeah, it's not like we're getting into trouble.
There you go.
I have had a
we
car
just sit at home
for the last week.
Right.
I mean, we have a car, but we only have one. So I've had a second car because our dad's, as we said, in Mexico.
Yeah.
And they left me with a car. So, I do have to pick them up from the airport, but small price to pay for a vehicle. Yeah. And it's a Jeep. So it's, really fun to drive. Thinking about going off-roading later this afternoon.
Oh, give me a break.
I would never in someone else's car, for sure.
Becky, you go to the dog park. You're like, woo.
Oh, look at that little mud puddle. Because they don't have concrete slab parking lot. Off-roading, bitches. Just kidding. No, not me.
No.
That was the fakest sounding laugh.
Not a risk taker.
My God.
Well, because I'm thinking, that would never happen. You would never go off-roading. That is not who you are.
No.
Just not a risk taker. You've always followed the rules.
I know.
That's who you are.
But
on this note of cars.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
My car's transmission completely got messed up, and me and Craig had to get a new car. Or his dad is selling us his old car. But it's in really good condition.
Yeah, that's
and so it kind of solves our problem. And but yeah, it was kind of a shitty thing to have happen.
Yeah, it really was.
So I guess that's new.
Yeah, Bev actually was leaving our podcast one night, and Jamie's like, "Hey, did you know your car is leaking all over our driveway?"
I had no idea. Turns out there's this massive stain in front of my house too. I just I think when I pull up into my parking spot, I'm too short to see really the ground in front of me.
Should she even be driving?
I can't see anything.
Where's my hood? I can't see the lights.
Where's the road?
Is there a car in front of me? I don't know. I'm just freeballing my ride to work every day.
Yeah, pretty much. So
yeah, her transmission's
either
off.
way, we both have good things to talk about when it comes to cars.
Woohoo. So let this be like a friendly reminder. If you haven't checked your like car's fluid levels, if there's a leak under your car, let this be like a warning. Go do it. Go just check, make sure everything's good instead of just driving and not knowing, right, Bev?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what could have happened if like all the liquid went out.
Well,
I'm sure somebody does know and they're like, oh, this is what would happen, but I have no idea.
I think it would seize.
Yeah,
just
so
like...
I'm just thankful it didn't happen and that your guy found the issue and all is well.
Yep. Got a safe warning and got a new car. Cool.
All
right, Bev.
So
hit it.
All right. So this case is about Marie Jane Carlson. She was born October 7th of 1974 in the Philippines. And when Marie was a young teenager, she was taken in by an American serviceman who ended up raising Marie alongside his own children. And one of his children, Esta, became especially close with Marie, and the two girls were just drawn to each other, and they truly did feel as close as sisters could be. So after Marie had lived with this family for several years, she received the surprise of a lifetime. And it turned out that the serviceman who had so graciously taken her in was actually her biological father. This meant that Marie had 6 siblings, including Esta. And obviously this revelation made the two girls incredibly happy and ultimately explained the deep bond that they always shared.
That's amazing to end up find out that like, well, I actually have a biological sister. No wonder we were so close.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Yeah. I think it would only serve to like make them even closer, right? Mm-hmm. So when Marie turned 18, she moved out of the family home and she was kind of like brought in by a woman named Kay Barber. And Kay treated Marie as if she were her own daughter. Kay always called Marie Rosie, and she just did that because Marie was always so rosy and happy. And the two of those people had an incredible bond as well, and they remained pretty close. However, eventually, Marie and Esta would move in together in their early adulthood, and they ended up renting an apartment in a cute neighborhood located right behind a karaoke club. And fortunately for Marie, she lived for karaoke, and she and Esta spent many long nights singing and having a great time there.
Oh, I feel like that is our jam right there, Bevy.
I know. Although, it totally is.
I have to say, I admire people who are like full-blown karaoke lovers because the couple times I've actually done karaoke in front of people, scary. It's like the absolute worst.
I know. I was going to say, I was like, that's like, what's stopping us from going out and living out our karaoke dream? Fear.
Public scrutiny.
Intimidation.
Public scrutiny.
Yeah. Public scrutiny.
Right. Now.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The only time I've actually done karaoke is with way too much liquid encouragement, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I feel like same here.
Yeah. I mean, according to my one karaoke endeavor, I chose the YMCA, and I feel like that was a good time. I know there's a video of it somewhere, and I choose not to ever look at it, though. I'm just going to...
Oh, my God. I did not know this.
Yeah, I'm just going to live in, like, for the moment that it happened and choose to believe it was awesome. And I never want to see it again.
You're not a bad singer, that's for sure. But I prefer the comfort of our own home when we do karaoke together, Becky.
Yes.
Because we do that.
We do. No one can judge us. No one can hear us.
Except for each other, and that's quite all right.
Yeah, we're used to it by now. It was hard at first.
Yeah. So either way, these two girls are living it up, living their karaoke dream. Now, Esta, she described Marie as someone who was really magnetic. She said that people were naturally drawn to her. She always wore pink, and she just loved to lift people up with compliments. She was never shy in letting anyone know how beautiful they were. So that kind of goes to show just how much Esta really admired Marie. And when Marie would eventually meet her soon-to-be husband, Jeff Carlson, he was also drawn to that magnetic personality and her beauty as well. And when they met, their romance moved pretty quickly. Like I said, it led to marriage and the birth of their adorable baby girl, Paris. And when they met, Marie was in school. She was working toward a degree in criminal justice. And after graduating, she landed a job as a deputy sheriff in Colorado. And she had big dreams of working for the FBI. Unfortunately, Marie had really struggled with her mental health throughout her life. As a young girl, she had been sexually assaulted, and as she got older, that only took its toll on her more and more. And it sometimes made things difficult in both her career and her relationships. It was something that, as I said, she kind of battled throughout her whole life since it happened. And eventually she would go on to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was put on medications to help manage the mood disorder. But even with the diagnosis, Marie still struggled. Taking care of herself wasn't always easy, and ultimately this played a role in her and Jeff's decision to ultimately divorce. However, that being said, the split was pretty amicable, and while Marie initially had custody of Paris, she did later decide that Jeff's home might provide a more stable environment, as Marie had never been one to stay in one place for long. She would bounce from job to job. And Jeff was incredibly supportive through all these transitions and did what he could so that Marie and Paris maintained a good relationship. And Marie made sure to stay in regular contact with her daughter. Now, I gotta say, I think that's pretty admirable that she put her daughter first in that way, knowing that maybe her situation wasn't the best or most stable environment for her. I just think making that decision as a mother is probably pretty tough, but also maybe the best thing you can do for your kid, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And considering how much she struggled, even sometimes taking care of herself, she was, like you said, just able, it was incredible that she could put her daughter first and really, allow her to have the living space with her dad, but still just be in constant contact with her. That's so admirable that she made that a priority.
I agree. And throughout all of this, Becky, Marie made the choice to really focus on her own mental health and get herself back on track. And that's when she decided to move to Fort Walton Beach in Florida, where she took a job as a barista at a coffee shop located inside of a church. And eventually Marie became involved with this kind community at the Calvary Emerald Coast Church, where Pastor James Flanders led the congregation. He had a more casual, laid-back approach to his sermons, bringing tons of energy and charm, and people really loved him for that. He even started making YouTube videos of his sermons, which helped draw even more people to the church.
Bev, I watched some of these sermons, not in total, because I didn't want to, but he was so charming. It was unreal. And I know that you like a good bald head.
I do like a good bald head. I like my bald man.
Yeah, you do. So when I first saw him,
Jason Statham. Oh my God. Sorry. That's outside of marriage, my man crush.
Did you say Nathan Statham?
No, I didn't, Becky.
Oh.
I said Jason Statham.
Oh, sorry. I was that's wrong.
Yeah.
Are you sure you like him?
You bitch.
There's time and place for Jason Statham for sure.
Hello, my name is Kristen Rigadel, and I'm a licensed insurance broker across Canada and in the United States. But I want to ask you a question. Is life super predictable? No, there's always going to be curveballs in life, but there's two things that I can guarantee you. One, we're all going to have to pay taxes, and two, we're all going to die. I know, it's morbid, right? But it's true. And that's where life insurance comes in. Life insurance is a selfless act. At the end of the day, it's meant for your loved ones in the event you were to pass away unexpectedly. And not that money can ever replace us, but I always liked the idea of leaving some money behind for my brothers, whether that be for their college education, or a down payment on a house, or even just time off of work to grieve. Because the last thing I would want for my family is to have to go to work and pay the bills while they're grieving. And so life insurance gives you the peace of mind that no matter when you pass away, your loved ones are taken care of. With flexible plans, affordable premiums, and coverage that fits your unique needs, I do the shopping around for you so that you can get the protection without the hassle. Because taking care of your future doesn't have to be complicated. If you'd like to discuss options, you can send me an email at krigadel15lrxc@wfgmail.ca or give me a phone call at 403-785-5300. 7670 to learn more and get a free quote today, so you can live tomorrow with peace of mind.
Yeah, I find him very amazing looking. Anyways,
Agreed.
so James was married to his wife. Is it Tanya or Tanya?
Tanya.
Okay, Tanya. He's married to Tanya, and they had a daughter. They were known as this wonderful family with big hearts. And Tanya led the women's ministry, and both she and James were always giving to other people. And when they met Marie, they extended that same generosity to her, just as they would have to any member of their congregation. They began helping her with some of her bills, and then in October of 2009, they took it a step further and they welcomed Marie into their home, which is just amazing. Obviously, she's going through a little bit of a hard time trying to get her life back on track, and they lend a helping hand. Fabulous, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone needs that kind of leg up in life.
Yeah, they do.
And so I find that very sweet. Now, in the mid to late 2010, so about like a half a year later, Marie moved to Arizona with James's family for a while. However, the reason isn't really clear. But whatever the reason was, it didn't end up working out, and she ended up moving back to Fort Walton Beach and back in with the Flanders. But what's intriguing is when Marie returned, she was pregnant.
Ooh.
Now, this is a total side note to everyone listening in, but if you hear my cat, I'm sorry. Normally he ain't here, and he is a nosy little bitch, okay? So
He's been howling all morning.
It's because I'm busy. He's so needy, so I'm sorry if you guys hear him. Just know.
It's her cat. Nothing's wrong.
It's my cat.
He's just needy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so back to the case. Marie returns pregnant. Now, the Flanders told their friends from their church community that Marie had been in a relationship with a man who was abusive to her while in Arizona. Marie ended up getting pregnant, and when the man found out, he abandoned her. According to the Flanders, Marie had wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but James and Tanya didn't agree with abortion, so they stepped in and offered to adopt the baby instead. After all, they had always wanted another child. However, behind closed doors, Tanya told a small circle of close friends who were sworn to secrecy that Marie was actually acting as a surrogate for her and James. The couple had struggled with fertility issues and multiple miscarriages. IVF was too expensive, so initially Tanya told her friends that they had used a turkey baster, but later Tanya confided in her friends that they went with a more do-it-yourself approach, and Marie and James had sex to get inseminated. But it only took one try, and Tanya was very okay with this plan.
Wow, it only took one try. Not that it doesn't happen. But, usually, when you plan that stuff, it usually takes a little longer, right, Beth?
Yeah, well, it took me freaking 3 years, so yeah. So either way, I have to say, the fact that this story changes a couple times feels super sketchy for me, Beck.
Does it? Do you, just sitting here with what we know now, could you imagine, though, a pastor comes in?
No.
He's a pastor and he says, I had to have sex with some other woman so that we could have a baby. That, I feel, is frowned upon.
Yeah.
So, to make up this elaborate story, though, of an abusive guy abandoning her after getting pregnant, that's kind of a weird way to go.
That's...
Gosh.
It is a weird way to go, Becky. It's also, just morally wrong. You're making up a massive lie. I don't know. I find lying to be not okay, not morally correct, and that's messed up.
I feel like
on top of it all.
Yeah, totally it is. I feel like based on their circumstance, they could have literally just said she's our surrogate. Don't go into explanation. It's no one else's business.
Yeah, you could easily say that, right?
Right? Maybe from a religious standpoint, is it the best option to go have sex with some other woman and get her pregnant? And maybe it's not the first choice. But, they want a child. Is it so bad? You got to do what you got to do. Just leave it at that. She's your surrogate. Why make this weird lie?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, because as you guys know, I really don't know the cases before I read them. But I could be wrong in saying that we haven't even gotten to the truth of the matter yet. Maybe they're all just bullshit reasons to why she's pregnant. So The plot thickens when another close friend to the Flanders had heard a different version, that there was an arrangement in place. Marie would carry the baby, nurse her for the first 3 months, and then leave. This was supposedly her way of repaying James and Tanya for all the support they had given her. Which, honestly, like, if you're gonna give someone support and expect repayment in return in this kind of, like, body-altering type of, like, thing, I mean, that's not really a gift or generosity at all, is it? It's like a transaction.
It's a transaction.
It's not. Yeah, I don't like it. So regardless of which version was told to whom, one thing was very certain. James was the father of Marie's baby. Oh. And all the stories? They were just a way to save face in front of the congregation. They couldn't have their beloved pastor being known as a man who slept with another woman, even if the reason was, let's say, for good intentions. So, in the summer of 2011, Marie and James had a little girl who was named Grace. But just 3 months later, on October 19th, Marie's closest friends and family received a message from her. It read, "Yesterday, I left Fort Walton Beach. There is something I have been waiting to do for a long time, and there will be no better time than now to do it. I didn't tell any of you what I was planning or that I was about to leave because you probably would have tried to talk me out of it. I appreciate and love all of you." Ooh. That's the text you were talking about.
Yes, it was. Now you can...
So immediately... Sorry, Becky.
It's okay.
I'm like, so now you can what?
It's just like that is what I'm talking about. It's so concerning, right? Like, who sends a text like that when they're close with their friends and family? No one.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Especially, like, you just had this baby. I don't know if they knew that, but, like, I don't know. It's all just seeming really sketchy. So immediately, Marie's loved ones were uneasy. And her sister Esta especially. For one, this message didn't sound like her. It wasn't her normal cadence, and more importantly, it was completely out of character for Marie to just up and leave without telling anyone, especially without talking to her daughter.
Yeah, and as we know, like, Marie kind of has, like, a history of moving around a lot, you know, traveling, all this stuff, but it was, like, she never did it without talking to her daughter first, like, letting her know that she was going to be away for a couple days, stuff like that. Like, there just wasn't any chance in hell that she wouldn't have chatted with her daughter first.
Yeah. So it's just out of character. And when a few people had tried texting Marie back, they got no response.
It's not right.
Now, if we remember Kay, she had taken Marie in, like, after she had left her family home. And she was worried about baby Grace and reached out to Marie. And she got a reply saying Grace was in good hands with Tanya and James. And that message sent chills down Kay's spine because Marie never said Tanya and James. She always said James and Tanya.
Isn't that...
Kay just knew that wasn't Marie responding.
Yeah, isn't that funny how it's like something so basic though? But like totally...
Yeah, but so important.
Yeah. So that like...
And I didn't even think of that, but like as soon as like Kay mentions that and it's said right now in this podcast, it makes me think that like her relationship with James was, I don't want to say better, but like maybe more close than it was with Tanya. And it just gives me the creeps. Like the fact that Tanya's name is first, I'm like, ooh, maybe it's Tanya texting back. Like she values her own self more. So she's like, my name goes first. But I feel like it wouldn't be this intentional, like, I'm more important, but like just like almost like a little slip, you know, where it's like,
but also
my name, of course, goes first.
Right.
Just like as I'm naturally texting or whatever.
Yeah. And whoever like wrote it, they probably, like, it's probably how they would normally say it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But and it's something so small that why would anyone think how Marie would say it, right?
Exactly. You wouldn't even like think that anyone would pick up on it. But I mean, if you talk to someone often enough, you do kind of learn how they talk. And as we know, Kay and Marie are very close.
Yes.
So she would know.
Yeah, and it just didn't sit right with her.
Yeah, and so feeling uneasy, Kay reached out to the Flanders to check in. They told her Marie had left 2 days earlier, but something, again, didn't sit right in her guts about this. And everyone close to Marie started to worry. Jeff, her ex-husband, decided to report her missing on October 24th to the Okaloosa Sheriff's Office. And to their credit, they took it seriously and opened an investigation immediately. Jeff explained that while Marie had gone MIA for a couple of days before, she had never done so without staying in contact with her daughter. Esta told detectives everything she knew, how Marie had lost her job at the sheriff's office, her divorce from Jeff, and how she ended up living with the Flanders. But she wasn't sure who the father of Marie's baby was. Marie hadn't wanted her prying. And Esta figured her sister would tell her when she was ready, but that never happened because Marie went missing before she could. Now, I have to think, if you and I don't tell each other something, I feel like there's like a reason for it in terms of like maybe we're embarrassed to say it, or maybe it's too emotional to talk about, or maybe we know we have done something wrong. Like, you know, when you kind of have like, I don't want to even say guilty conscience, like that could be part of it, but just something that feels a little bit more intense that you're just not ready to admit yet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, so it kind of seems like that's the situation right now, because if I tell you something that I'm kind of like, I don't know, like nervous to tell you, like I know you're going to be real with me. I know you're going to tell me what you think. I know you're going to be like, oh, Bevy, like, what are you doing? You know, like,
yeah,
I don't
like,
know.
Why are you having a baby with a married pastor?
Yeah.
Oh, you know?
Or maybe, why do you have a relationship with a married pastor? Who knows, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you want to just keep it to yourself and not have to hear anyone else interject their opinion or thoughts about it.
Exactly.
And so she, like, after this is all said and done, maybe she was going to tell her sister. I don't know.
Well, she probably, like, I figure maybe, right? And like, it's kind of interesting because like Esta obviously knew about the baby.
Yeah.
But just didn't know the full details. So it is kind of weird just bringing it back to that text. It's kind of weird to like, where she's like, I don't want my plans to be like messed with. But it's kind of like, well, Esta already knows like a lot of it, right? Like she didn't mess with your plans before you had the baby. So I don't know. Again, it just seems sketchy.
Yeah. It kind of seems like a cold text to send your sister who you're arguably like closest with.
Yeah.
To not be
and
more
like
detailed.
She already knows a lot of the details. So it's kind of like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So after this, detectives go and question James. He gives them his version of events. He explained how he and Tanya met Marie and how after some discussions, Marie had agreed to be their surrogate. Money was tight and IVF was expensive, so according to him, they did things the old-fashioned way. James claimed that when Marie was in Arizona, he and Tanya went down there, and that's when he and Marie had sex. He said she got pregnant on the first try. Once they confirmed the pregnancy, they moved Marie back to Florida. Partly because Tanya wanted to keep an eye on her. She was worried Marie would change her mind and end the pregnancy. There had been rumors that Marie had changed her mind and was considering an abortion, so they felt like it was a fair concern.
And Bev, I have to say, if someone, like Marie, I shouldn't say someone, if Marie is considering abortion, it makes me wonder, like, what are the terms of this quote-unquote surrogacy, you know? Like, if you were truly just helping someone, like pure and simple surrogacy after the baby's born, like you're gone, you're out of the picture, why would you consider an abortion?
Yeah.
Like if you're true.
That's a good question.
Like to me, like why, like, anyways, I'm just repeating myself clearly, but why would you consider that if you were literally just doing someone a favor? I would never consider that, be like, this is going to be tough on my body, but I'm helping someone I care about.
Totally.
So what circumstances was she under?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm wondering as well. Like, was it consensual like they're saying?
Yeah, or did Marie want something more from James?
Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, it does seem a little bit weird. Mm-hmm. So while they were back in Florida, the Flanders helped care for Marie. There was even a baby shower, but it was mostly for Tanya, who was captured in a picture standing beside Marie with a balloon under her shirt. All right.
Okay. That's not weird.
James then told detectives that after Grace was born, Marie's behavior started to shift. She wasn't taking her medication and spiraled into a depression. He hinted that he was concerned she might harm herself. He told detectives that on October 17th, the last day he saw Marie, he was so worried about her that he stayed home from work. That morning, Marie had woken up in a mood, and he was afraid she'd leave and take the baby. Later, she got tired and went to lie down in her room. Tanya left to go shopping and took Grace with her so Marie could rest. And when Marie eventually got up, James was waiting for her. They had a brief conversation before he decided to go for a run, but when he got back, Marie was gone. Her white Mazda truck was missing too. Now, what is interesting about this whole scenario, one, I was never thinking like the text that Marie had sent her family was about maybe she wanting to end her life. But now that he's saying that, like, I can see, because I'm basically under the assumption that James and Tanya wrote it for her. Like, that's just what I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's so sketchy. I don't think she wrote it herself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, he's kind of laying down the groundwork to make it like, oh, she was so unhappy. She wasn't on her meds. Like, she didn't want her family to thwart her plans or stop her from doing something, which now I'm perceiving as suicide, which I wasn't before at all, Becky. So I don't know. It just feels very contrived.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And then not only that, but if you're going to stay home from work because you're so worried about someone and then go for a run, like, what?
Doesn't really make sense. Like, maybe she calmed down? I don't know.
Nah. It defeats the whole purpose. If you're really that worried about her, like,
yeah,
don't leave her alone.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or, maybe call the police.
Yeah. Something or other. But I just think it's, when you're like, oh, things just don't sound
right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, obviously, when he gets back, Marie's gone. Her truck is gone. And he said to detectives that both he and Tanya found a bag Marie had packed, but she hadn't taken it with her. Then, on October 19th, they got that mass text that everyone got. They waited a couple more days before going out to look for her. And on October 21st, they found her truck in long-term parking at the airport. James told detectives that, out of kindness, he and Tanya drove the truck back home so Marie wouldn't have to pay crazy fees for parking.
Yeah.
He even provided a receipt showing they took the truck out of the lot on October 21st. But there was a major problem. The receipt also showed when the truck was initially parked at the airport, it was October 18th, the day before the text was sent, and the day after James claimed to have last seen Marie. So where was she between the time she supposedly left the Flanders home and when the truck ended up at the airport? And more importantly, where is she now?
Now, Bev.
So
there's a couple weird things there. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way that I do. I'm sure you do. But I'm not sure. What? Like, did they have a spare key for her car? Or was a key left in her truck and they drove it home? But also she's missing. Why would you just assume, oh, I'm going to save her money so that she doesn't have to pay like this huge parking fee when she gets back? Like, doesn't that seem outrageous? What if she left it there intentionally? What if she was coming back and just took a flight somewhere, for a week or whatnot? Like, doesn't that just seem so weird to just take the truck?
No, it does seem weird. It's like, and also like, how did they find the truck? Like, it's just a random happenstance that they were able to like look in the right place, like, and find it so soon.
Yeah, like it didn't seem like it was much effort.
Yeah, so no, I think you raised really good points. Like, did they have a spare key?
Did they?
I don't know. Not many people have a spare key to my car. In fact, like, my husband doesn't even know where my spare key to my car is half the time. You know what I mean?
Like, that's not useful, but point made.
That's not useful. You're right. Like, if something happens, like, maybe he should. Maybe I should bring that up to him.
Be like, hey, this is where we keep the spare keys. Just in case, like, I'm locked out.
But it is weird, like, that they're not her husband.
Yeah. It's just
weird.
Just weird.
No, you bring up some really good points, Becky. And if you find her truck, like, abandoned or whatever, and you feel like she is in trouble, obviously you thought she left under circumstances that were not ideal. Mm-hmm. She was not in a good place. Why wouldn't you call the cops?
Well, exactly. Why was their first instinct, let's save her parking money and drive it home because she'll be back to our place?
Yeah. It's very weird.
It's fucked.
It's fucked. Ugh. Yeah. It's definitely giving me the heebie-jeebies, Rebecca.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, investigators dug deeper, and they learned that Marie never got on a flight. There was no record of her ever buying a ticket. And next, they checked the security cameras at the long-term parking lot. And to their horror, at the exact time they needed the footage, the cameras weren't working.
Of course they weren't.
Of freaking course.
Like, why does this happen so much, Bev?
Such a
like, we've had it in so many cases where it's like, I mean, sometimes it's literally the person, like the murderer, like hiding or deleting what was on there. So it's not like the cameras weren't working. But this one, it's like a big airport parking lot.
Like, how the fuck?
The cameras should be working. And it's like, oh, they just weren't. Like, I hate when that happens because it's like, it could show so much. And it's just the way the world went, Like, there's no major reason for it. It's not like anyone had control over it. Just didn't work.
Yeah, just shitty happenstance, right? So police started speaking with people in Marie's circle, including some of the members of the congregation. And that's when investigators began hearing all the different stories about Marie, her relationship with the Flanders, and the surrogacy of the baby. And when detectives spoke with Tanya's close friends, they seemed to know a little more, but seemed to be holding back. The detectives had a gut feeling that they weren't telling them everything.
Yeah, because they were sworn to secrecy, and clearly they're very good friends.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So at this point, with these little witches holding back info, they invited James and Tanya back to the station for another conversation. But this time, only Tanya showed up. She told them that James and Marie had sex to conceive the baby. Beforehand, they had gotten drunk on sake, and she had been in the room with them while they slept together.
Oh, that's creepy.
That's so creepy.
Ew.
Then she dropped a bombshell. Herself, James, and Marie were in a polygamous relationship together. Marie and Tanya were what's known as sister wives, and that they were a throuple. They had kept it a secret because it would have been frowned upon in their church.
Yeah.
And according to Tanya, Marie was totally fine with James and Tanya raising Grace. Eventually, the plan was for her to leave. But once Grace was born, Marie became withdrawn and wanted Grace to herself.
Okay, Bev. They're in a throuple. They're in a polygamous relationship.
Supposedly.
Why was the plan then for Marie to leave?
I know, that's exactly what I thought when I read that. That makes literally no sense.
I mean,
at all. Like, she could even, like, let's just think about this, okay? Like, I feel like Marie is pretty good at, like, maintaining a really close relationship with her own daughter, but also being, like, a distance away. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, why, if she's living with this throuple, like, why wouldn't she be okay with Tanya, like, having more time with Grace and her kind of being a little bit more distant? Like, she's kind of, like, used to that dynamic a little bit. Like, why would that make her jealous and want Grace all to herself? Like, I don't know. It just seems like, it just doesn't seem like to match who Marie is in general. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on there.
But you know what does make sense?
You tell me, Becky.
Is that if maybe they were just using Marie to get this baby and then telling her that she had to leave this newborn daughter after 3 months and why she might be a little more depressed or like on edge.
Yeah. Especially like right after like giving birth to a baby, like your hormones like are kind of all over the place, and she has a history with her mental illness and depression. Like surely that could also impact her state of mind like after giving birth.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, you raised some good points, and we're really speculating here,
sure.
But I feel like this is a juicy one to speculate on.
I know.
Like, I gotta say.
Right? Like, we're reading between the lines today.
Oh, yeah, we are, baby. Reading between the lines. Yeah, I did, and then I was like, that's nasty.
No.
I pointed my little fingers together, like, what are you doing? Why does that, is that a sexual thing? It must be. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop waving your fingers together.
I don't know if it was, but I'm glad you have stopped.
Yeah, it's it felt like it, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So a little after Tanya's interview, detectives speak to one woman from the church claiming she overheard Marie saying she wanted Grace and James all to herself.
Ooh.
Another woman said Tanya had once told them, James could never kill Marie, but I could.
A what?
At this point, the Flanders were looking hella suspicious. They definitely had a motive, but the big questions remained. Did Marie leave on her own, or did something happen to her, and where was her body? Then, 2 months after, or into the investigation rather, detectives received the phone call records for James, Tanya, and Marie, and what they found was, in fact, shocking. In the days after Marie disappeared, her cell phone and James's cell phone mirrored each other's movements, pinging off the same towers. Even more suspiciously, on October 18th, the day Marie's truck was abandoned at the airport, James's phone pinged off the airport tower within minutes of the Mazda being dropped off. Then, on October 19th, both Marie's and James's phones pinged off of a tower near the Flanders home, the same day the mass text was sent. And it got even stranger. On October 17th, The day Marie supposedly left the Flanders home, a police officer called in a license plate. It was on a white Mazda truck registered to Marie Carlson, saying that it had been abandoned at a Chevron gas station. I love how I'm saying it had been abandoned. No, it had been abandoned at a Chevron gas station. But the truck speaks.
I was abandoned.
But at that point, Marie hadn't been reported missing, so they had no reason to do anything about it. And when detectives compared this to James's phone records, they discovered he had been at or across the street from that Chevron station within an hour of when he claimed Marie had left.
Cell phones, man.
So you weren't out on a run, you mofo.
Liar.
Right?
Yep.
This led police to conjure up a theory they believed that James initially abandoned Marie's truck at the gas station, hoping it would get stolen. But when that didn't happen, he panicked and moved it to the airport to create a distraction and make it seem like Marie had left town voluntarily. But in reality, they believed James had killed Marie.
Right. So they are also reading between the lines and all the cell phone data. Wow.
Yes, they are reading between the lines. Yes. And cell phone records also confirmed Tanya's alibi. On October 17th, she was shopping in Destin with baby Grace.
So she wasn't home.
She really wasn't home.
James is looking pretty guilty at this moment here, Bevy.
Yeah, but I would say even though she has an alibi, I don't think that totally negates her involvement, just because I feel like it kind of seems really planned. She was coincidentally out of the home with baby Grace when all of this went down. I don't know. You know?
Yeah.
That's just, it's my theory right now. I just feel like she's sketchy as fuck.
Yeah.
So with this new cell phone data, detectives called the Flanders and asked them to come in for another chat. But the Flanders must have been spooked because that very night, James, Tanya, and baby Grace packed up and left.
They're running. They're on the run, Bev.
Oh my God.
I have to laugh because it's that looks so guilty. Even hypothetically, let's say they had nothing to do with it. It's why would you
just up and leave? You must have known what was on those cell phone records.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Or just so dumb.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys obviously can't see me right now, and maybe we'll upload a little video here, but my mouth
dropped.
Dropped. I was what? Yeah. That definitely seems guilty.
Yeah.
So, a little while later, on January 28th, 2012, detectives learned that a moving truck was parked outside the Flanders home. Apparently, they were heading to Arizona.
I assume with James's family. I don't actually know, but I can only assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, where they
of course
did the deed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They're probably going to live with family in a different place.
Yes,
you're right.
Yeah.
Then, a breakthrough, Becky.
Oof, love these.
Jason Anderson, a youth pastor at the church, came forward with critical information. He told detectives that before James and Tanya left, James had asked another church member for help leaving the country. James wouldn't give specifics on why, just that it was really bad. This church member later told police that James seemed suicidal. Just days after the police first spoke with him about Marie, James was placed on a psychiatric hold for 10 days at the hospital. Jason also revealed that right before James and Tanya fled, there had been a meeting at the church. James admitted to being in a polygamous. I could say it better before. Why can't I say it now? I was all of a sudden.
It's your circuit board just fried for a moment.
Yeah. So anyways, James admits to being in a polygamous relationship with Tanya and Marie, and that Marie wasn't just a surrogate. He also confessed that on October 17th, he and Marie had a physical fight, and he had scratches all over him. They had ended things on bad terms, but according to James, when he last saw Marie, she was still alive.
Yeah, I bet she was, James.
You just don't want your church thinking
you killed someone.
Yeah.
He's sitting there and be okay, I did.
I'd rather be in a polygamous relationship than a murderer.
Yes, that's exactly. He's lesser of two evils for sure.
Yikes. So at the end of this meeting with the church, James resigned as pastor.
Yes.
And a few days later, he and Tanya, as we know, disappeared. Now, with a stroke of luck, just before the Flanders left, Kay, good old Kay, reached out and asked if they would give her Marie's personal belongings. Shockingly, they agreed. Kay received Marie's laptop and other items, and she immediately turned the computer over to the police. But when investigators went through it, it was completely wiped clean. There was nothing useful left. And at this point, the case had stagnated. James moved and refused to speak with investigators, and no new evidence had surfaced.
Oh, that must be the most frustrating feeling as, like, Marie's family and investigators, right? Like, oh my God, like, we can't move forward right now. There's nothing.
There's so much circumstantial evidence, but nothing to really, like, implicate them in murder, right? Or in the disappearance. Well, like, there is, like, phone records and things like that, but, like, nothing, like, to show that even a crime was committed. So it's kind of tough in this sense, right? But then, Becky, in April 2012, an anonymous tip came through Crime Stoppers. The caller said James had killed Marie and buried her in the Flanders backyard.
What?
With probable cause, detectives brought in cadaver dogs and used ground-penetrating radar to search the property. But after hours of searching, they found nothing. It was devastating. And without new evidence, the case yet again stalled.
I wish I knew who called.
Why? To, like, shame them?
No.
To be like, you knew nothing, but you called.
No. I'm just, like, sitting here wondering, like, there's only probably a small handful of people that actually know what could happen, meaning maybe only Tanya and James. You know, so, like, did one of them just have, like, a guilty conscience and call and just, like, it's like their confessional, you know?
Yeah, or was someone just, like, you know how some people just, like, call in with tips because they kind of want to, I don't know, and they know nothing?
Oh, like, just shake things up for no good fucking reason?
Yeah, that's what that's where I thought you were gonna go, but who knows?
I mean, they didn't find anything.
That's what I'm saying.
So maybe I wouldn't want to shame them if I knew who it was.
That's right.
No, we'll
maybe
see.
you would have wanted to.
See.
Damn you.
For life.
Wasting resources. So for over a year, detectives continued to try to contact James, but with no luck. He was nowhere to be found. And finally, after a year, he answered their call and had a lengthy 2-hour conversation. But instead of revealing anything useful, James rambled about how he was the victim and how all of this was taking a huge toll on him. When they asked him point blank if he killed Marie Carlson, he said no. And once again, stalemate.
Like, what was the point, James?
What was the goddamn point? So 3 years later, this case actually gets busted wide open when forensic technology advanced. Marie's laptop was re-examined. This time, investigators found a gold mine of evidence, Becky. There were hundreds of sexual and pornographic texts. Clear proof that Marie and James were way more involved than they had claimed. And then, the messages stopped entirely on October 17th. So did all activity on Marie's bank account and credit cards. And with all this mounting evidence, detectives felt they had a fairly strong circumstantial case and requested an arrest warrant for James Flanders. And on May 5th, 2015, James was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The biggest problem, though? They still had no body. If they went to trial, there was a real chance that James could walk free. There was just too much room for doubt. So Marie's family agreed to a plea deal. If James told them where Marie's body was and what really happened that night.
So he literally had to confess and tell them where the body was.
Right. And in April 2016, James Flanders pled guilty to manslaughter and finally confessed that Marie had been buried in the backyard all along.
What? Bev.
What?
Bev's jaw is again dropped.
So you would not have shamed that person. Whoever called
was right.
Obviously knew something.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying, who the F was it?
Yeah. Was it like, I feel like it's like kind of like, was it James? Like, I just wonder if his guilty conscience was kind of coming through. Like, why did he answer the detective's call years later after ignoring them for so long? Maybe he was the one who called. Like, you never know.
It's true.
Obviously, that's total, like, speculation on my part.
Yeah, not found.
But it does make me wonder.
It does.
So James claimed that on October 17th, he told Marie she needed to be hospitalized for her depression. She was off her meds and she allegedly attacked James, and in an effort to restrain her, he gave her a bear hug. They fell to the floor in an ungraceful way, and when he got up, he realized Marie was no longer breathing. Which, let's be honest, kind of sounds like bullshit.
Shit.
But instead of calling an ambulance or attempting CPR, James wrapped her in a blanket and buried her in her backyard. He had dug the hole 5 feet deep, so deep that when police searched before, they missed it. Apparently, in wet, thick soil or clay, it can reduce the depth that the ground-penetrating radar can detect to approximately 3 feet.
So that's why. And let's be real, Bev. When we hear of people like burying bodies, how often do they actually dig 5 feet down? It's usually like a shallow grave, you know, or
Right.
is easily unearthed by like animals or weather, right? Not 5 feet down.
Oh, that's as tall as me. That's huge.
Yeah, it is
Well, I mean,
very
no,
tall.
it's not. No, I was going to say, like, I am very short. But, like, in terms of a hole in the ground, like,
That's deep.
it's deep.
Yeah. But like, Bev, how long do you think it would take you to dig a hole that 5 feet down? And like enough, obviously enough width to put a body in.
It'd be backbreaking work, Rebecca.
Back breaking. So my question is, like, hearing that, how long was Tanya fucking shopping for?
Seriously.
I can't say that Tanya knows anything. Let's be real. But surely it takes a damn while to dig that hole and then fill it all in.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. I just feel like it was like an alibi for her to not be implicated in the crime.
For sure.
You know?
And Bev, let's like talk about a bear hug. You received one before. I've received one before. How do you die getting a bear hug?
Yeah, Becky, I don't know. That's just like, as I said, bullshit.
It is bullshit. I'm just saying, like, you'd need to be like fucking boa constrictor.
You would have to be like a boa constrictor. Really, though? Like, when he answered the call from the police a couple of years prior, right after ignoring them for so long, he made it very clear that he was the victim in all of this. Like, I do feel like him relaying how Marie died also paints him almost like in a victim mode. Like, he was being attacked. He does his best. It ends up terrible for Marie, but I just think he's had a lot of years to kind of convince him that this is actually what happened, when I don't think it's true at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, as I said, James took the plea deal and he received the maximum sentence, 15 years in prison. And he could be released as early as 2029.
What's really sad about this, Bev, though, is that if they had found Marie on their first initial search of the backyard, they could have...
He'd be in prison for his life.
Yeah, they could have found his body, or her body, I mean, and then be able to charge him with at least second-degree murder. But now, because he did a well job of kind of hiding her body, they relied on his testimony, or not testimony, but like, what am I trying to say?
Confession.
Thank you. And they had to use him to find it, and so then he got a plea deal. Like, it just fucking sucks that all his planning actually, or not planning, but like his efforts actually worked to his advantage.
I know.
Ugh.
It is a real piss off, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, Becky, it does suck. But do you want to know what happens with Tanya Flanders? Because it's kind of even worse.
Yes, I do.
There wasn't a single shred of evidence tying her to Marie's death. And some people, like me and you, have a really hard time believing she didn't know anything about Marie's death. So she still has custody of baby Grace. Marie's family gets occasional visitations and phone calls, and Marie's sister Esta has fought for custody in hope that baby Grace could get to know that side of her family better and see how much they all really loved her biological mother. But as it is, Tanya has custody.
I mean,
so.
I do understand that it would be hard to just uproot Grace, because, like, I mean, as of right now...
As long as she's known that's her mom, right?
Exactly, because, like, as of right now, she's not a baby.
No.
She, as of right now, is like a young teenager. So I see why they'd keep her with Tanya, because from day one, it was her mother, right?
Especially with no evidence suggesting she had anything to do with it, but I really don't think that that's fully the case.
I think at the very least, she knew that Marie was in their backyard. Because how, Bev, as we said, that giant hole, how do you cover that up? Like, before your wife gets home from shopping, how do you do it in that time frame? How do you cover it up? Like, I would
then drop off the truck at a gas station. I mean, she went with him probably to get the truck, you know what I mean, from the airport. Like, no, she definitely knew. And like, knowing about a crime and not saying anything implicates you at the very least, for real, right? Like, you did nothing to protect this young woman, and yet you benefited from everything that happened. Like, you got your child out of it. So
yeah. Now, I think what's hard about this all is that even though we have James's so-called confession, I think the reason leading up to it, I don't think he was super honest about just that, like, you know, she had baby Grace, mentally wasn't well after the birth. I mean, it could be true that maybe she had postpartum, she had mental health issues already, but I think leading up to it, Marie wasn't happy maybe with the result of having to maybe leave or not getting to take care of Grace and having Tanya be the sole mother. I think there's more to that story than we could ever imagine, and that more than we'll ever know.
Yeah, like obviously with the messages that were found on her computer and stuff like that, like they had a full-blown relationship, James and Marie, and I do feel like it wasn't this consensual thing where she's trying to help them have a baby. Like, that's just my feelings about the situation.
For sure.
Because obviously we don't know, because they gave a whole bunch of different reasons. They kind of like made up some bullshit stories like over and over again. So who really knows? Maybe she was being consensual in this, but I just feel like probably not.
Or maybe accidentally got pregnant. And then I could imagine Tanya being like, you need to get rid of her. I want to be this baby's mother. I don't actually know, but that's like, you know, when you just get a vibe?
Yeah.
That's how I'm feeling. Because like, just knowing that Tanya never went to the police, you know, she was the only one that benefited from this.
Totally.
So, I don't know, Bev. There's a lot of questions still up in the air about everything, but at least Marie was able to be laid to rest, and her family at least has a general answer to what happened to her and can at least have some closure for sure.
Absolutely. But my heart really goes out to Marie. I just feel like she was really used in this situation and ultimately lost her life. And so many people are missing out on such a beautiful person. And like her daughter, Paris, also misses out on her. And like, it's just really sad. Because it's such a trickle-down effect for some people who are just selfish. Yeah. You know?
For sure.
So, well, anyways, that was an interesting case, though, I have to say. It was very interesting. And obviously, the outcome is always so sad. So, that's all I got for you, Becky. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing.
And just your weekly reminder to download our weekly episodes, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and give us a follow on our social medias. You can find us at Luminol on the Wall. Can't wait till next week.